Hey guys, this is AnimeBallZ here, and today we're going to be doing the 6th part to What If Deku had the Quirk efficient. As you guys know, more parts of this What If are to come. There's nothing much I want to say in the intro, so without further ado, let's get into the video.
Slick talker since a jet. Winter time, all the time, ooh, yeah. Look at the way that I move, swag. Disrespectful and I'm rude, okay. I had cocaine in the school.
After this, Deku isn't in hospital at all, and after the Vanguard Action Squad noticing Deku's power, they retreat and get out of the area as fast as they possibly can. Deku and Bakugo are now pretty much friends again and have a somewhat friendly rivalry. Deku has become much nicer and more like his canon self again after getting all the confidence from his power. The heroes aren't actually trying to escort Bakugo since he's not there, but they're trying to take out the League of Villains and the Vanguard Action Squad, to either capture the villains or kill them, whatever is needed to stop them. Deku is pretty bummed that he isn't coming to help, but as I said in the previous part, Deku isn't scared to use his power even if he's told not to. Deku and Bakugo have decided to help to take down the villains. Deku thinks, I can do this, I feel like I'm closing in on the sound barrier. If I can break that, then I'll be unstoppable. Bakugo says these villains will pay with their lives. Kirishima says, are you sure you guys can do this? Tenya says, if any of us can help, it's them. Deku is in a league far above us and Bakugo is getting up there too. His ability to concentrate his power allows him to perform devastating attacks able to injure people far superior to him in strength, speed, durability and more. Todoroki says, I'll help. Bakugo says, are you sure you can do it? Deku says, hey, Gatchan! Todoroki says, I can use my steam to blind opponents temporarily. I've also improved my ice spear's sharpness and efficiency. The three kids managed to follow the pro heroes on their way to Kamino. Yaoyorozu made the device for the heroes but also secretly made it for the group. Bakugo and Todoroki are forced to get on Deku's back, which looks really weird but really funny. Deku is still able to go more than 100 miles per hour across the buildings and follow the tracking device to Kamino. The League of Villains are in the room and the Vanguard Action Squad is talking about how Deku was able to take down a lot of their members. Shigaraki says, that kid! Deku soars through the sky and then he decides to use his first physical enhancement and 4% of One For All to speed him up a bit. The pro heroes then look up and see Deku zoom far in front of them. All Might says, Midoriya? Another hero says, I thought you said for Lab Night not to come here. All Might says, I don't know how we got here, but I don't think we should be complaining. That kid is something else. Deku says, we're approaching the building. Todoroki! They get off of Deku's back and stand on top of a tower looking down on the building from a distance. They hide themselves and Deku says, Todoroki, you'll use your steam and then you and Bakugo will blaze the place with fire and explosions. I will go in and try and knock out as many as I can. Todoroki says, how will you see through the mist? Deku smiles and says, I'll manage. Bakugo thinks, ah yes, he will zoom through the mist so fast that the mist will part in front of him and around him so he can see. Nerd. They then see the heroes coming close, then they both grab onto Deku's arm. Deku ups his One For All to 5% and uses the first physical enhancement as well. He zooms in the air and Deku kicks right into the building. Todoroki covers the room with steam, then Bakugo shouts and blazes the room with explosions. Todoroki then raises his left palm and releases a gush of fire. Deku looks to the side, then dashes to the first villain. He is able to take out multiple villains in a split second and he tries to knock out Kurogiri but nothing happens. His fist kind of goes through him, then he looks in confusion. He turns and All Might punches Kurogiri and slams him into the wall. Shigaraki goes in to disintegrate Deku, but Deku dodges and knocks him out with one hit. Kamui Woods then constrains all of the knocked out villains and Deku spins at super speed and the mist slowly blows out of the building. All Might says, Midoriya, I said for you not to come here. Deku says, but look how easy that was. The villains are all taken out. All Might says, you do not have a hero license, you are not permitted to do this even if it makes the mission easier, and you two, Katsuki, Shoto, you shouldn't have come here either. Bakugo scoffs from this comment and Todoroki doesn't really care. The three decide to leave since they've done what they needed to do, but then they notice All For One and his striking aura. Deku thinks this villain, he has something to do with the origin of One For All. Even I stand no chance against him, we have to leave. They then see the heroes trying to face this being. They easily get destroyed by him and he isn't even trying. Deku thinks, should I help? I don't know, what should I do? Todoroki says, we must leave, Izuku! Deku says, no, you two leave, I must help. He then runs forward and becomes close enough to where All For One notices him. All Might zooms right past him and both All For One and All Might clash. All for One, after a small bout, uses a large energy blast that sends All Might flying above Deku. Deku then clenches his fists and his whole eye glows white with a green glowing tint. When I mean his eyes, I mean his irises, pupils, and eyeballs. He uses 10% and the first physical enhancement and zooms at All for One. All Might shouts, "No!" Deku and All for One clash. All for One says, "You are fast, but have no power." All for One puts his hand out ready to absorb his quirk, but Deku is able to dodge the attack. Deku then kicks him in the head at super speed. Deku jumps back, then All Might lands a punch to his gut. All Might shouts, "Run, Midoriya!" All Might then gets punched in the head and hucked away. All for One then begins a second blast, but Deku zooms at All for One and slams into him. He's only able to knock him to the side a little, and then the beam just about skims past All Might. Deku gets punched away, then kicked. Deku slams into the ground and the ground cracks from the impact. All Might then runs in and battles All for One. All Might is hanging with him, like going blow for blow, but he's definitely taking more damage than All for One is. Eventually the distance in their power begins to widen. The news arrive and notice Deku in the distance. Everyone watching is scared and they all want Deku to leave as fast as he can. All Might and All for One punch each other in the face, then All Might gets uppercut into the air. All for One uses Airwalk to fly up to All Might and punch him across the battlefield. All Might lands and Deku notices his body start to abnormally get smaller in some places. He sees Gran Torino there too. He thinks, "Gran Torino? I must raise the stakes." All Might and Gran Torino then manage to get All for One to take some serious hits, then All Might pummels All for One and causes a large cluster of rock dust. Deku drops his 1 for all level to 3% and then starts trying to advance into the second physical enhancement as well. His muscles go a more bloody colour and his pupils disappear. Gushes of wind and green lightning trickle from within him. All Might turns as All for One kicks him off. All Might's body deforms and he begins controlling 1 for all into his right arm for his final attack. He then sees Deku transforming and getting stronger. Deku then finishes the transformation and his muscles buff up. The gush of wind blows in one final wave and leaves his body to be a very muscly and bloodshot kind of colour. His skin basically looks more red. All Might then throws his United States of Smash punch, but All for One manages to dodge the attack by using all of his speed at once. He then kicks All Might into the ground defensively and flies up. All Might is left weak and small. All for One then kicks All Might back and he goes tumbling and rolling across the ground. Deku sees the horror of this man and dashes at him. Bakugo then launches his AP bullet from a distance and confuses All for One. He shouts, "In honor of All Might, Limelight Supersonic Smash!" He lands his punch and the attack is almost as powerful as All Might's. Deku is able to completely break his defenses and cause considerable damage. All for One is left almost unconscious, which is unlike the series since his hit was weaker than All Might's. Deku is left almost dead, but his unbelievable willpower keeps him on his feet. Think of it as the scene in Rock Lee vs Gaara where Rock Lee is still able to stand after being knocked out. All for One puts his hand out and begins to absorb Deku's quirk. All Might is able to come in however and land the most powerful punch he can muster. This knocks All for One out and Deku's body steams out back to normal. He then falls into All Might's arms and the whole world goes crazy. Everyone is hysterically crying and screaming with joy. Their two heroes have just taken down the ultimate villain. Deku is left unconscious just like All for One, but because of his quirk he is able to wake up a few hours after the whole battle. After this, Deku gains utmost popularity across the world. People are saying he is the new All Might and the next symbol of peace. Little do they know something else happened. There is no news of All for One partially absorbing quirks, or at least none to my knowledge. I will still add this minor feature to this what if. Deku lost considerable power when All for One tried to take his quirk and All for One didn't even get any power. He just weakened Deku. Deku using that insane combination form also weakened him a good amount. This makes it even harder for Deku to heal from this and he loses access to the second physical enhancement and his combination form. He can only handle up to 12% 1 for all and the first physical enhancement at best. This leaves Deku in a state of depression and distress. His power has just been ripped from him. After all of that wonder and training, it's gone, just like that. Bakugo thinks, "I do not want to win like this. This is not fair. I will not accept being stronger if Deku is left in a state like this." As you can see, Bakugo is having the same reaction to Deku losing power that Endeavor is to All Might losing power. Recovery Girl is able to heal Deku partially and Deku's body is left to do the rest of the work. Deku is pretty much bedridden after this event though. All Might says, "Midoriya, why did you decide to come and now your power is gone?" Deku says, "I thought I could win." All Might says he weakened you. He didn't even get any power and he knew he couldn't. He only did that to make you as weak as possible. Bakugo says because he is fearful. All Might says Katsuki. Bakugo says he feared his power and wanted to make him as weak as possible to take him down in the future. Deku says, or maybe for Shigaraki to do so. All Might says it is most likely. Deku says, why do I have to be like this? I can't do anything anymore. All Might says, stop talking, save your strength. Deku smiles and falls asleep. All Might quickly looks at his heartbeat and sees it is fine. Recovery Girl says he is just asleep. He is lucky his Quirk is still here, because if it wasn't, he probably would have been left in a coma for a very long time. Bakugo thinks, you better get back to normal, Deku. You better get back to normal fast so I can beat you. So that concludes the 6th part of What If Deku had the Quirk efficient. If you have any questions about this video or any parts of the What If, then just put it in the comments. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see you in the next video.